Hi there, my name's Emma. I'm a first year medical student studying in Australia, and I thought we could do hopefully kind of a funny video today. So I've watched Dr. Mike and Mama Dr. Jones do the Google Autocomplete for their careers. So Mama Dr. Jones looks up what people are Googling about OBGYNs, and I checked a little bit around YouTube and there doesn't seem to be any med students doing this, so I thought I would share my perspective on the questions people are asking Google about med students, being a med student, and everything like that. So let's just jump into it. So I've got my laptop here and I will be sharing, here we'll scooch over, I'll share what's on my screen over here. And I've opened up an incognito Google browser so it doesn't show any of like my past search history, not that I've got anything to hide, but I don't want it to cloud what Google thinks I'm searching, because Google's going to try to fit my needs if I'm logged into my Google account and everything like that. Why don't we start with what? What do medical students study? We study medicine. A little bit more specifically, we do, your anatomy, your physiology, then you go into, after knowing what normal is, you go into pathophysiology, so how things can go wrong and what that looks like when they're wrong. And that's sort of all the book learning side, and then we tie that in with our clinical skills. So we learn sort of, at least in first year, we learn how to take a patient history, blood pressure, blood glucose levels, really simple clinical skills that we can do with minimal risk to the patients, and then we build from there. So then you start to learn more and more clinical skills, how to do different types of exams, and you add on from there. So that's what we study. That's what that question is. What do medical students wear? That really depends on your year, your school, and what you're doing. So I dress semi-business casual or smart casual, they might say in Australia, pretty much every day. If we have an anatomy lab, closed-toed shoes, that kind of thing. Some med students wear scrubs a lot, even if they're just going to school, and that just looks so comfy. And then as you move up, and if you're shadowing in the hospital or you're on your clinical placements, you wear what's appropriate there. So that might be surgical scrubs if you're going into surgery, or smart casual, business casual for a GP clinic. What do medical students major in? I guess this is for pre-meds, because we major in medicine, but pre-meds you can do pretty much anything. So I did a major in biological science, specializing in life science, but you can do pretty much anything. I suggest you look at something biologically based because it's just going to give you a better foundation before taking your MCAT and things like that. What do medical students need? A hug? If you know a medical student, give them a hug. It is a hard degree. We put ourselves through a lot, so we need a hug. Hugs, food, we could always do with a little bit more money, and just support. I think med students just need support, honestly. That's probably it. What do medical students practice on? Each other, people, simulations. It kind of depends on what it is. So we've been doing a lot of practical exams on each other because it's just listening to each other's hearts, lungs, that kind of thing. We've done blood glucose levels on each other, but the second years, they start by learning cannulation, so that's like actually in your vein, on a simulation before they touch a real person. So simulations are getting really, really good. These are really cool engineered things to act and look as realistic as possible, and it's nice because then you can get your skills down before risking pricking someone. But eventually we've got to practice on people, and sometimes those people are ourselves first. Sometimes those people are very nice, very kind volunteers first. What do medical students do in the summer? I don't know. I haven't had a summer yet. We probably, hopefully, relax and visit our families, and probably a little bit more studying. And our summers start to get shorter and shorter and shorter, so eventually we don't have one. What do medical students do for money? Loans. A lot of us have a lot of loans. Some med students maybe in their preclinical years do work or are living off savings that they've had previously, but a lot of us owe a lot of banks a lot of money once we graduate. So that's what do medical students. Let's check out why do medical students. Maybe they're wondering why we put ourselves through this. Okay. Ooh. Why do medical students smoke? I'm not a smoker. Why does anybody smoke? Because they tried it and they continued to smoke and now they have an addiction. I think this kind of is addressing sort of the hypocrisy of a lot of people practicing medicine. So I try to live the healthiest life I can, but I definitely don't get good night's sleep. I definitely don't eat well. Exercise falls down the list when I'm studying for exams, things like that. And it's really hard to be a medical professional or a med student and sort of practice what you preach. And it's really interesting once you're actually in it, you realize how unhealthy you are. And I hope to, when I'm practicing, be very healthy so I can practice what I preach. And like if I'm sitting there telling a patient to, you gotta exercise more, I'm actually doing that as well. So medical students, yeah, some of them smoke, some of them do things that aren't the healthiest options for us, and that's not good, and I hope they are learning why they shouldn't, and I hope they're getting the support to stop. Yeah. Why do medical students get depressed? We're getting deep. Okay. Again, why does anybody get depressed? There's a lot of different reasons, psychological, social, etc., etc. If they're asking in more of a burnout kind of sense, I think it's just because we put a lot of expectations on ourselves. And there's a lot of expectations on us externally to do well, to push more, do better than before. And with things like in the United States, there's STEP or residency matching, and there's hurdle exams here in Australia. You have a lot of pressure to get certain scores, and you want those scores, and it feels like you have to start pushing yourself from the very beginning. And it's really hard as anyone, even a student, anybody, it's hard to reach out for help. But I think particularly people in sort of a healthcare field, when you're learning how to care for other people, it can be hard to care for yourself, or it can be hard to put up your hand and admit that you need the support. So that's not a direct answer, but there's a lot of pressure on med students. A lot of it's from ourselves, a lot of it's just external, and when we're not meeting those expectations, we can kind of fall into a bit of a slump. I really hope if you're a med student, you're watching this, go reach out to help, chat with a friend, go to therapy, GP, someone that you can speak to take the next steps to take better care of yourself. Why do med students drink so much? Can I say see the above answer? Ooh. Also, I'm in Australia and there's a particularly different drinking culture here. Australians, you'll know what I mean. Probably the pressure, and I think there's this unique mentality in any sort of really difficult degree or just time when you're going through a really difficult thing with a bunch of colleagues, is that when you get a chance to let loose, they really let loose. And again, probably not the healthiest. We tell people not to binge drink, we tell people not to consume too much alcohol, and yet yeah, so probably just the pressure, and just we're humans. A lot of us are, depending on if it's an undergrad degree or postgraduate degree, we're anywhere from the age of like 20 to something in the 30s, but most of us are young, mid-20s, and they're still young, mid-20-year-olds. They still want to have a good time, and so that's what happens. Why do medical students fail? It's hard. Yeah, it's a hard degree. It could be for a number of reasons. I wouldn't say that any one student who fails is not as intelligent as their classmates. It could come down to study habits, expectations. If you're burnt out, it's harder to study. Anxiety can make it really hard to perform in tests and things. Or it could be factors completely external, so it could be family matters or financial matters, and they're working more than they are studying, and that's getting behind the way. So there's a lot of reasons why med students fail, and it's just a matter of, if you think you're slipping, to try to find that help, and I hope it's available to you. Why do med students drop out? Because they are very brave and can admit that they don't want to do it anymore. I think a lot of people get stuck in the rounds of med school because they've committed, they've paid so much money, they've told people for, 5+ years now that they're going to be a doctor, that they want to be a doctor, but their heart's not in it. And I think those that recognize that and drop out because of that, like, kudos. Kudos to you. That is an extremely hard thing to do. And just props. Also, there's obviously the people who drop out due to financial reasons or they can no longer attend school, and that's always heartbreaking because their heart really is in it, and there's things outside of their control that cause them to no longer be able to attend. And that's sad. That one's sad. Why do medical students need physics? So I know the MCAT has physics section, and often it's sort of a prerequisite. You'd think it's unnecessary, but you actually use it a lot. So we just did our MSK block, or we're doing it now, and you need to know, or at least have an understanding of moments and forces to understand the distribution of forces across a bone. So that's one example. The heart, so there's a lot of sort of understanding of electricity and how that moves through signals and things within the heart. The lungs, it's all pressures, volumes and pressure, and I guess that's kind of chemistry as well. But you do use it, and you don't obviously need to be like an astrophysicist or a mechanical engineer, but it does come up and it will come back, and having that understanding actually is really helpful. Why do medical students not match? So this, I think, is talking into sort of your residency program. So in the United States, you'll hear a lot about like match day and the match process, and in Canada there's CARMS. And it could be any number of reasons. I know in the States it's kind of an interesting algorithm. So sometimes it comes down to like you not ranking the schools that rank you in the right order, and there's an imbalance there, so then the system can't find you a match. And sometimes it's you match programs that don't want you, and that's unfortunate. Sometimes it comes down to scores or grades. There's any number of reasons why they don't match, and there are processes if you don't match to try to still get a spot for that next year, so instead of waiting a full year to match again. But I don't know those, I'm just a first year. Why do medical students faint? Why does anyone faint? We're tired, we're hungry, we've not got enough sleep. If it's talking specifically when we see surgery or blood for the first time, I mean, we're still people. Just because we want to be doctors doesn't mean we've had a lot of exposure to blood and guts and all those things. So a lot of the time, like, they see blood just like anybody else, and we faint. Myself, I used to never faint at the sight of blood, and I've tried to donate blood a few times, and that's too much for my body, and I fainted. So now I do get a little bit queasy when I see someone getting their blood drawn, and I'm trying to sort of like mentally brace myself for that. But it's really normal. It's a normal, like, physiological response to see blood and your body go, I don't like that, please stop. So it's nothing wrong with that. If you're a med student and you fainted before, it's okay. Just because you faint at blood doesn't mean you can't be a surgeon. You'll figure it out, you'll get through it. Yeah. And why do medical students need to be resilient? Because it's a long haul. You really need to develop self-discipline and the ability to love yourself despite the scores and despite the feedback and things, and take any feedback and use that to improve. So you are really pushing yourself every single day to do better, because we care about the people that we'll one day be treating. And that's a lot of pressure to be perfect or to try to be perfect. But you really need to be able to take some feedback, absorb it, use it positively, and keep pushing forward. I think there are some things that can be fixed sort of in the culture of med school and the culture of healthcare professionals or medical professionals as well. But you do have to kind of develop a thick skin. Not saying you don't have to reach out for help. You should do that. But you do, because it's hard and we get a lot of feedback. And yeah. What about why are? Why? Well, to that first one, thank you. Maybe it has to do with the scrubs. I don't know. We've talked about why are medical students depressed. The NMC. I don't know what this bill is. Okay, that's an NMC bill in India. I'm just not going to comment on that one. Why are medical students so arrogant? Good question. I like to think I'm not. Call me out if I am. But there definitely are some that can be, and I think that kind of comes with, they worked really hard to get into medical school. There's this certain prestige given to those that are in medical school, law school, that kind of thing, and that can go to some people's heads. Unfortunately, that doesn't always get squashed. I think it should. I think in medicine, one of the best features I think of a doctor is humility, and I think you should start practicing that while you're in med school. But there's always going to be the person whose head's too big to fit through a door, in any field. I think medicine just kind of, the putting a med student on a pedestal adds to that problem of overly arrogant med students. And then overly arrogant doctors. Why are medical students so annoying? I don't know. Are we annoying? I didn't want to be annoying. Probably because the first thing we say is that we're medical students and people don't like to hear that. Yeah, why is anybody annoying? Because all we do is study and talk about medicine and then we post about it on Instagram. That's why we're annoying, because we seem to think it makes us special. Oh, I don't want to be annoying. What are medical students? A group of people pursuing a field that they hope will bring them joy, some money. Some people want to help people. That's our main goal. But we're a group of students going through a very long and hard 4 to 6 years, depending on what country we're in. That's what medical students are. Overly tired, overly caffeinated human beings. Are we still human? I don't know. Oh, this is making me sad. Okay. So, how do medical students... Okay, we talked about make money. Some people have jobs. Some people don't make money. We just borrow it. How do medical students study? This really depends on the student. I'm going to shamelessly plug here, my videos on how I study, and I'm going to create more on those. Some of us memorize things, some of us work in groups on whiteboards, some of us answer questions. It really just depends. The point being is we study a lot. A lot. Talked about how we pay for school. How do we take notes? Again, depends on the student. You see a lot of iPads now. I use a mix of my iPad and my laptop depending on the day. How we dress, how we learn, how we pay off debt. Slowly, but hopefully surely. I like this one near the bottom. How do medical students practice prostate exams? On simulations. So we have at school, and we actually learned how to do prostate exams in first year. We have a male and female buttocks in the correct position. So it's literally just sort of the upper thigh and the lumbar spine and everything in between. And it has a palpable prostate and the channel leading to, and obviously in the female it doesn't have a prostate. And yeah, we practice giving the whole spiel and introduction to the person, to real people. So whether that's our classmates or our tutors, clinicians, but we don't practice, at least in my school, we don't practice prostate exams on real people anytime early on in that education. How medical students... Oh, these are some good ones. How do medical students choose a specialty? I think some medical students come in and immediately know what they're in love with, and they just fall further in love with that as they study, and that's awesome. Some people, like me, we have a vague idea. I kind of know what I like, what I don't like, the lifestyle I think I'd like, and we just slowly fall in love with them. So I'm first year, so right now I'm just learning sort of the physiological processes in the body. So to me it's more, oh, I think that's really cool how that works, but I haven't done any sort of clinical placements yet to know the lifestyle or what it's really like day to day as a person that works with that system. So like if I think the brain's really fascinating, I have no idea what it's like to be a neurologist or a neurosurgeon or anything like that. If I think communicating with patients is really great, I have a rough idea on what it's like to be a GP because I've used a GP, but I don't know what it's like on the other side. So I think as we go through our different paths and education, we start to fall in love more and more with different topics and types of lives and people. And I think when it comes down to it, most people will prioritize, are they interested in it? Does it give it the work-life balance that they want? Do they have the mix of procedures, surgeries, and consultations that they want in that kind of role? And of course, some people will also consider how much does that pay? And some people will consider how hard is it? Is it going to be 7 more years of residency and fellowship, or is it going to be a shorter life path? You kind of have to balance a lot, and I will let you know when I'm in 4th year, probably 3rd and 4th year, on what that looks like for me. Let's see if we can find some funnier ones. Medical students are skipping class in droves. Poignant. Personally, I go to class, but at some medical schools, mine included, they put up lectures online. So a lot of students find it's better for them to study by watching a lecture online. You can do 2 times speed or anything like that, and taking it at a pace. Or medical students who have families that they need to take care of or want to be with, they can then watch the lecture online at night. They can balance work more easily, things like that. There's also a lot of medical students who feel the need to do all of this external learning, or who are studying for STEP instead of studying for their classes, if that makes sense. So they are pulling in resources from all of these other places and their lectures are just a piece of those resources. And I'm not saying that that's wrong at all, as long as students are attending. Sorry if things look different, my camera died. I was saying I don't think that's wrong as long as students are attending for their clinical education, because that you can't learn online. I can't learn how to palpate a knee without a knee in front of me. So that's a thing. Medical students are the worst. Well, that's just mean. I don't think we're the worst. Some of us are. Some of us are. Thankfully, I can't think of anybody in my class that is, but I definitely know the stereotype of really annoying, really arrogant medical student, and I'm sorry. Sorry that you've had that experience. Please don't think we're all bad. Med student. Medical student jokes. Oh, we all develop a very interesting sense of humor. I think it's a coping mechanism, but there's going to be jokes that reference different body systems or something that, you know, just like inside jokes, like engineers have jokes that none of us understand. Med students are going to have jokes. For example, this one, my friend tagged me in, and it's so relevant. It hurts a little. So comment below if you want me to read through med student pickup lines and laugh with you, because I think that would be so entertaining. I'm gonna try to come up with some of my own just for kicks. How, who, what, when? Oh, when do medical students? When do medical students get paid? Are you asking a living wage, or are you asking just paid in general? Med students do start to get paid during their residency or internship, depending on the country, what you call it. So that's after medical school, provided they match. But is that enough to live a comfortable life for the hours you're working and to pay off your loans? No comment. When do medical students take step 1? Again, this is the United States. My understanding is after the 2nd year, and the 2nd year, so after your preclinical years, you take step 1, which is all based on physiology, learning you've done in your lecture book, as well as who. I actually don't know. My guess is that would have to be between 3rd. When do medical students get white coats? This one's fun. So some of us, we get it, you know, part of our orientation week. Some of us get it sort of, it's a pretty standard tradition. You get it after your first big test. So maybe that's your first block exam or something. Then you get the white coat, so you feel like you've kind of earned it a little bit more. Or some students never get white coats. We have white coats for when we're in the hospital, and it will be our own white coat. But we got a stethoscope. And again, I'll put it, I think it's this one. I talk about why I like that I got a stethoscope instead of a white coat. I was going to ask, like, when do medical students sleep or take care of themselves? In between the study. I do try to sleep a normal amount. So I guess that's it. I don't know. I hope you learned a little bit. I hope I made you laugh a little bit. There weren't really many hot takes. I guess I should have been aware that people can find med students really annoying. Sorry. Can't help it. I think it just comes with the degree. But yeah, if you like this video, make sure you give it a like and comment down below some other videos you'd like to see from me, or if you have any different answers or any questions that I can answer. And make sure you subscribe. I make videos about my life in med school, my life in Australia, and including like med school vlogs or sit down videos like this. So yeah, I had a lot of fun. I hope you did too, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.